All right, let's jump right into a really fascinating thought experiment today. We're going to unpack a scenario that perfectly reveals the hidden hierarchy of airline customer service priorities. Look, we all know what it's like to fly, but what happens when the very systems designed to keep us sane and comfortable just completely fail? We're going to look at a high-pressure, intensely human situation that cabin crews actually train for. And by the end of this explainer, you're going to see exactly how psychological triage works at 30,000 feet.
So picture this. Put yourself directly in the shoes of the cabin crew. Imagine you're on a fully booked, ultra-long-haul flight to Auckland. We're talking upwards of 16, maybe 17 hours trapped in a metal tube soaring over the Pacific Ocean. That kind of journey tests the patience of even the absolute most seasoned traveler. Suddenly, a technical glitch strikes. You discover that 6 different passengers have a completely broken in-flight entertainment system. You scour the cabin, checking every row, every aisle, and there's only one spare seat left with a working screen. Just one single working unit for an agonizingly long flight.
And honestly, the math here is brutal. You have one single working screen to distribute among 6 very unhappy people. As a crew member, you are entirely responsible for the cabin's atmosphere. You're the face of the airline, the peacekeeper, and the problem solver all rolled into one. You can't just snap your fingers and magically fix the fried electronics, which means you're going to have to make a really tough, very calculated, and highly visible call. A call that could literally dictate the mood of the entire cabin for the next half day. The tension really dials up when we look at who's actually vying for this seat, because every single one of these 6 passengers has a completely valid reason for wanting and arguably genuinely needing that one screen. It's not just a matter of who asked first or who's complaining the loudest. It's about accurately assessing deep underlying human needs in a highly pressurized environment. Let's run through the manifest. First up, we've got a scared first-timer who's visibly terrified of flying, gripping the armrests before we've even reached cruising altitude. Passenger 2 is an unaccompanied minor, a young girl flying totally alone who really just wants to watch her favorite cartoon to feel safe. Passenger 3 is an ultra-loyal Skywards Gold member, a VIP who spends tens of thousands of dollars a year with the airline and regularly leaves glowing or scathing reviews. Passenger 4 is an elderly flyer with mobility issues who physically struggles to sleep or read a book for hours on end. Passenger 5 is traveling to a family funeral, carrying an immense burden of grief and desperately needs a distraction. And finally, Passenger 6 is a newlywed husband on his honeymoon, hoping to celebrate and watch movies with his new spouse. So there it is, 6 passengers, 1 screen. Now, right off the bat, you're hit with some serious emotional heavyweights. Think about the elderly passenger whose body simply won't allow them to comfortably pass the time by napping or holding a heavy book. The screen is practically their only window to comfort. And then you have a grieving passenger attending a family funeral. This person is trapped in a metal tube for 16 hours with nothing but their own tragic thoughts. They desperately need something uplifting, some kind of mindless movie or comedy, just to get through the flight without breaking down. I mean, your heart naturally bleeds for them. Denying either of these people feels incredibly harsh, almost cruel. But then we have what you might call the classic customer service red herrings. The pressure of ignoring a vulnerable, unaccompanied minor traveling all alone is absolutely huge. Leaving a child bored and anxious on a long flight is a guaranteed recipe for tears and disruption. And right alongside that, you have the Skywards Gold member. From a pure business and PR perspective, risking the wrath of a highly vocal, incredibly loyal frequent flyer is a terrifying prospect for any corporate brand. This is a person who holds immense power over your airline's reputation. If they take to social media, the fallout could be massive. These are the classic traps that often trip up inexperienced staff, distracting them from what truly matters in the air. So before we look at the optimal answer from our source material, I want you to actually lock in your choice. Run through those 6 profiles in your head again. The scared flyer, the minor, the gold member, the elderly passenger, the grieving relative, or the honeymooner. Who do you give the seat to? Take a second. You got your answer? Okay, if you went with the first-time traveler who is terrified of flying, you nailed it. You made the optimal choice. Now I know what you might be thinking. It seems completely counterintuitive to standard customer service logic, right? Why bypass the grieving passenger who needs our deepest empathy? Why ignore the ultra-loyal gold member who essentially pays your salary through their repeat business? In almost any other industry, a hotel, a restaurant, a retail store, the VIP or the grieving customer would instantly get the upgrade. But an airplane is not a hotel, and there's a deeply logical, rigorously tested framework behind this exact decision. Here's the key takeaway. We aren't just talking about entertainment or basic customer service here. This is actually a fundamental matter of passenger well-being and psychological triage.
When we completely reframe the in-flight entertainment system, taking it from being a mere luxury item that plays movies and viewing it instead as an active, vital tool for anxiety reduction, the priority matrix completely shifts. We stop asking, who deserves to be entertained? And we start asking, who is at the highest risk of psychological distress? It all boils down to the safety-first principle. In aviation, physical safety and psychological well-being always come first. A passenger who is terrified of flying isn't just mildly inconvenienced or bored. They are in a state of active, escalating psychological distress. Left unmanaged, severe flight anxiety can quickly trigger a full-blown panic attack. And panic, especially in a confined, pressurized cabin, is incredibly contagious. It unsettles everyone around them, creates a disruptive environment, and crucially, it forces the flight crew to divert their attention away from essential safety duties to manage a medical emergency. By proactively using that screen to deeply distract the anxious passenger, you're actively reducing their fear and heart rate. You aren't just helping that one individual, you're preventing a potential crisis and ensuring a calmer, much safer cabin environment for everyone. When you weigh the terrified flyer against the Gold member, the priority becomes crystal clear. We're looking at a genuine health and safety issue versus a loyalty and convenience issue. Sure, the Gold member might complain bitterly. They might demand a manager, they might even write a scathing one-star review. But they aren't going to have a panic attack over the Pacific Ocean. They aren't going to compromise the safety protocols of the flight. We must always, without exception, prioritize mitigating a potential crisis over preserving corporate loyalty or preventing a bad review. But wait, choosing to help one person doesn't mean we just abandon the rest, right? We still have 5 intensely unhappy passengers stuck on a 16-hour flight to Auckland with blank screens in front of them. And this brings us to an absolute masterclass in conflict mitigation and diplomacy. Because the real challenge of customer service isn't just giving people what they want, it's how you say no to a grieving person or a VIP without making them feel slighted, ignored, or neglected. This is where beautifully personalized alternative solutions save the day. For the unaccompanied minor, you can't give them a screen, so you bring out activity books, coloring sheets, maybe a special flight deck tour if permitted, and you ensure the crew does frequent, friendly check-ins so she feels special. For the Gold member, you approach them directly, use their name, personally thank them for their immense loyalty, and immediately offer a tangible goodwill gesture, like bonus miles or a premium bottle of wine. The elderly passenger gets magazines, newspapers, extra pillows, and constant offers of physical assistance. The grieving passenger receives something a screen could never offer anyway: genuine, compassionate human support. You bring them a cup of tea, offer a listening ear, and provide quiet emotional check-ins. And the honeymooner? You congratulate them warmly, maybe bring them a complimentary glass of champagne, and offer alternative joint options, like a deck of cards. You turn a negative into a memorable moment. What this whole explainer really drives home is how to holistically manage a major customer service crisis. These tailored, deliberate gestures prove that personalized attention and radical empathy can successfully make the other 5 passengers feel entirely cared for, even without a working screen. You can't always fix the broken hardware, but you can always manage the human element. By identifying and addressing the specific, root desire of each passenger, whether it's the need for distraction, the desire for recognition, or just a simple craving for comfort, you completely neutralize the frustration. So, looking back at this hidden hierarchy of airline priorities, did your initial instinct match the safety-first approach? It's just a brilliant reminder that in high-stakes, pressurized environments, the loudest complaint or the most deeply sympathetic story doesn't always dictate the right response. True problem-solving requires looking past the surface level of frustration and prioritizing foundational human safety and psychological well-being above all else. Next time you're on a flight, take a subtle look around the cabin. Watch how the crew interacts with different passengers. You might just spot this exact kind of invisible psychological triage happening right in front of you. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll leave you with a question to ponder. In your own daily life and work, when everything breaks down, who is the scared passenger you need to prioritize first?